Tonight on SportsCenter, we're breaking down a crucial update out of New York, and it's one that could have a significant ripple effect on the Knicks roster. It involves extension talks, roster decisions, and what it all means for a longtime member of the team. So let's dive into what was laid out. As reported this evening, the Knicks currently have 3 players eligible for a contract extension. And what's surprising, most fans probably haven't even realized who they are. First off, Karl-Anthony Towns, who has been consistently linked to the Knicks in trade rumors. Then there's Mikal Bridges, though his name no longer matters in this category after recently inking a major extension. And finally, there's Mitchell Robinson, the longest tenured player on the team and one whose future now hangs in the balance. Let's talk about Robinson for a second. On one hand, yes, he was phenomenal in the postseason. He played with heart, anchored the paint, and reminded everyone just how much of a difference maker he can be. But there's the other side of the coin, the injury history. We're talking about a player who missed a large chunk of the regular season. And with every injury comes questions about his long-term availability and durability. Now, here's where the story really starts to shift. According to what was detailed tonight on SportsCenter, there's growing concern inside the Knicks organization about the cap implications of keeping Robinson long-term. The Bridges extension, combined with recent signings like Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele, has put New York dangerously close to the second apron. And crossing that line triggers major financial restrictions under the new CBA. The second apron isn't just about spending. It limits how teams can trade, sign, and structure deals. And the Knicks are now towing that line. So when it comes to Mitchell Robinson, they may be forced to make a decision, keep him and make cuts elsewhere, or move on to protect financial flexibility. What was made clear tonight is that Robinson is in a tricky position. He's coming off the most impactful stretch of his career, yet he may not be part of the long-term plan. Not because the Knicks don't value him, they clearly do, but because they simply might not be able to afford him without sacrificing elsewhere. Empire Sports Media reported that the Bridges extension could be what ultimately forces the Knicks to cut ties with Robinson. Think about that. One player's payday potentially ending another player's tenure. And while the core of this team might be held together for now, Robinson's future is definitely in question. The organization has no intention of breaking up the main unit, and that means someone on the edge has to become expendable. All signs are pointing to Robinson as that piece. So, what's the alternative? Developing youth, going younger, embracing cheaper contracts. The Knicks may have no choice but to shift their focus toward rookies and second-year players, the kind who can step into roles and produce without breaking the bank. Names mentioned during the show included Ariel Hukporti and Mohamed Diarra, 2 young bigs who could theoretically be developed into the next Robinson-style contributor. Think about it. Their rookie-scale deals are a fraction of what it would cost to retain Mitchell. From a front office standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Even with load management, there's a general expectation that Robinson will miss games next season. Whether due to injury, rest, or conditioning, the team knows it needs a backup plan. So they'll be watching closely. Who among the young guys can hold their own? Can someone step in and prove they deserve a real rotation role? Now, let's circle back. Mikal Bridges has been extended. Karl-Anthony Towns, if he even arrives, likely won't get one anytime soon. And as for Mitchell Robinson, the Knicks are going to wait. They'll let the season play out, evaluate his health, his performance, and then, maybe, make an offer. It's a wait-and-see situation, and it could actually work in Robinson's favor if he plays lights out. But it also protects the team. If injuries creep up again, they've dodged a financial bullet, and if Robinson shows out, they still have options. It's a smart strategy from a cap perspective, especially as the Knicks navigate an era where every dollar matters under the second apron. At the end of the day, this team is a contender. They are right there, on the brink of something big, but to truly reach the top, every roster spot, every contract, every decision has to be measured, strategic, and flexible. And that's what this all comes down to. Can the Knicks afford to keep Mitchell Robinson in the new era of NBA finance? Picking up where we left off on SportsCenter, there's another layer to this Mitchell Robinson situation and the Knicks' long-term planning that needs to be addressed. When you're operating this close to title contention, when you have a roster capable of competing at the highest level, you're not just limited in what moves you can make. You're limited in the margin for error. Because here's the truth. When you're chasing a championship, it only takes one wrong contract, one misstep, or one bad injury decision to derail everything. All the work you've done to build something special can vanish instantly. That's why there's no room for panic moves, no rushing into the wrong extension. And when the right move presents itself, like it did with Mikal Bridges, you act decisively. Let's revisit that for a moment. The Bridges extension was a master stroke. New York locked him up for 4 years at a number below his maximum, an incredible value when you consider what he brings on both ends of the court. It wasn't just about keeping a key piece. It was about managing the books, avoiding the dreaded second apron, and preserving enough flexibility to build around their core, now and in the future. It mirrors exactly what happened with Jalen Brunson not long ago. He took less than his market value to stay in New York and help build something sustainable. Now, Bridges has followed that same playbook, and sources close to the team told SportsCenter tonight that this is becoming a trend. Star players are buying into the bigger vision. And credit where it's due, Leon Rose and the front office deserve massive praise. They're not just throwing money at stars. They're strategically convincing high-level players to commit long-term and take team-friendly deals, all in the name of one goal: multiple championships. That's the model. That's how contenders are built and maintained under the current CBA. And the Knicks? They've bought in fully. Which brings us to what odds makers are saying. FanDuel released updated title odds for the 2025-2026 NBA season. And guess who made the top of the list? Oklahoma City comes in first at plus 230, followed by the Cavaliers at plus 750. But here's the key part. The New York Knicks are right there, tied at plus 850 with Denver and Houston. That's elite company, and what that tells us is that Vegas sees the Knicks as a legitimate threat. Let's put that into perspective. When bookmakers are listing you in the top 3 or 4, it means your roster, depth, coaching, and financial position are all being recognized as elite. That doesn't happen by accident. Now, let's circle back to a key discussion that was brought up on SportsCenter earlier in the offseason. There had been whispers that Mikal Bridges wasn't extended right away because the front office was leaving the door open for a possible Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. But now that Bridges has officially signed that 4-year deal, that window is likely closed, at least for now. Why? Because under league rules, Bridges can't be traded for the next 6 months. And many insiders believed that if a deal for Giannis was to be made, Bridges would have been a centerpiece. With him now locked in and off limits for trade, it strongly suggests the Knicks are pivoting away from blockbuster trade talks, not just for Giannis, but for any major star. This doesn't mean the Knicks are standing pat. According to tonight's report, they're shifting focus to free agency and exploring smart, short-term deals to maintain depth without blowing past cap restrictions. They're in position to add value without panic spending, and that's the sign of a front office that's playing chess, not checkers. So as we wrap up this segment, the message is clear. New York has a plan. They've locked in their stars on smart contracts. They're avoiding cap landmine. They're keeping a contender intact while still having enough flexibility to pounce when the next opportunity arises, whether that's in July, at the deadline, or next summer. That's going to do it for tonight's update here on SportsCenter. If you're a Knicks fan, it's time to feel confident in the direction this team is heading. Whether it's Robinson's future, Bridges' deal, or the front office's vision, the Knicks are all in on chasing something special. Stay tuned, because as the season approaches, this front office might not be done yet. All right, let's get right into what was said earlier today on SportsCenter, because this was one of those reports that makes the entire league take a step back and pay attention. And yes, the question was raised live on air. Could a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade still be on the table before the season begins? It was ESPN's own lead insider Shams Charania who dropped the latest intel. And what he said certainly stirred things up across the NBA landscape. According to his sources, there is still nothing set in stone regarding Giannis's long-term status with the Milwaukee Bucks. That's right, nothing finalized, no commitment locked in. Conversations have reportedly been taking place over the past few weeks, and they've been described as very real. So, what's the key concern from Giannis's side? According to Shams, it's simple. Can this current Bucks roster win a championship, not just this year, but looking ahead to 2026 and 2027? That's the question Giannis has reportedly been asking repeatedly behind the scenes. And based on the current roster, the honest answer is probably not. This brings us to the buzz around the New York Knicks. And yes, the possibility of them being back in the Giannis sweepstakes. There was a belief that New York might have removed itself from the equation once they extended Mikal Bridges, since that extension makes him ineligible to be traded for the next 6 months. But now, that theory may no longer hold water, because, as we heard on SportsCenter, if Giannis were to go to the Bucks front office tomorrow and request a trade, you better believe the Knicks would be ready to submit a serious, highly competitive offer. And let's be clear, even without Mikal Bridges, the Knicks still have pieces, several of them. You're looking at names like OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson, and yes, even Miles McBride, a rising young guard on a team-friendly deal. That's the kind of controllable talent Milwaukee could covet in a potential rebuild or retool. Now, let's talk about the money. Because, as we know, any potential deal in 2025 has to line up financially under the new CBA, which has made high-level trades a much trickier task across the league. Giannis is set to make $54.1 million this season. That's the number the Knicks would need to match an outgoing salary. So the front office would need to package a combination of players to make the money work. And that's where things get even more intriguing. Could a deal be structured around Anunoby, Robinson, McBride, and multiple first-round picks? It wouldn't be easy, but it's definitely possible. And remember, if the Knicks wanted to get creative, names like Karl Anthony Towns could enter the equation as a third-team piece to balance out assets and salary. Bottom line, this door is not closed. Far from it. Also mentioned today, Giannis is currently overseas training with the Greek national team ahead of Eurobasket, staying in top shape and preparing for what he believes will be a crucial season. But that doesn't mean his future is certain. It's clear now, based on Shams's latest update, that some high-level conversations have already happened behind closed doors. The tone? Unsettled. With NBA training camp about 60 days away, the window is shrinking. But this is often when bold moves are made. Late August, early September, right before the start of camp. And if a superstar trade is coming, the groundwork tends to be laid right now. Now, let's pivot for a moment. Let's say you're Leon Rose. Let's say you're the Knicks front office. And let's say Giannis makes that call to Milwaukee. What do? You don't hesitate. You push all your chips to the center of the table and go get him, period. And look, it's not like the Knicks are a rebuilding project. They were 2 wins away from the NBA Finals last season. They've added depth, including Gershon Yabusele and Jordan Clarkson. And this is a team that's aiming to compete now. And in a wide-open Eastern Conference, they've got just as good a shot as anyone. So the debate that was brought up this morning is now the one being echoed across Knicks Nation. Should New York go all in for Giannis if he requests a trade? I'll leave that to you guys in the comments. But if you ask me, my answer is a resounding yes. When the second-best player in the world, and yes, that's where I have him behind Nikola Jokic, becomes available, you do not as I've got more thoughts on how this situation might unfold. And trust me, this could all move fast. We're going to dive deeper into what a Knicks trade package might look like and why the next few weeks could determine everything. Stick around. Game 1 of 82 is coming fast. Now let's keep this going, because on SportsCenter this morning, the segment didn't just stop at what Giannis is thinking, it went deeper. We're officially about 58 days away from the regular season tipping off, and the pressure is building. But here's what was emphasized on air. If this trade ever becomes a reality, It'll likely need Giannis to force the issue himself. The only way this truly happens, and this was made clear by the panel, is if Giannis approaches the Milwaukee front office and says, "I've done everything I can here. I want to move on, and if I could choose my destination, I want to go play for the New York Knicks." If he takes that approach, the Bucks, out of respect, might just honor it. Let's be honest, Giannis brought a championship to Milwaukee, brought the franchise back to relevance, and gave the city nearly a decade of dominance. If they deny him the chance to pick his next chapter after all he's done, that sends a terrible message to any future superstar who might consider Milwaukee. So yes, the Bucks owe Giannis that much. That's how it was framed on SportsCenter, and it makes sense. Now, as for the Knicks, yes, they traded a chunk of their draft capital in the Michael Bridges deal. That might complicate things a bit, but not enough to remove them from contention. If Giannis signals that New York is where he wants to be, the Knicks will absolutely make a competitive offer. Would it be the best one league-wide? Maybe not, but it could be strong enough to get the Bucks thinking. Here's the math. Giannis is owed $54.1 million this season. That's a massive number. And under the new CBA, you have to match salary almost dollar for dollar. So how do the Knicks get there? You start with OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson, two high-level starters with playoff experience. Add in Miles McBride, a young talent on a team-friendly deal, and you're approaching the mark. You still need more? That's when the Knicks can toss in picks, future firsts, maybe a swap or two, and that starts to look like a serious package. Let's be clear. If Giannis is truly available, every team in the NBA is going to make a call. But if he lists the Knicks as a top preference and tells the Bucks he won't re-sign elsewhere long-term, that changes everything. On the court, we also have to be real. The Bucks' current roster just isn't good enough. We heard that sentiment loud and clear on SportsCenter. A starting five of Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma, and Giannis? That doesn't scream title contender. Not in 2025. In fact, even if Giannis plays the best basketball of his career, that lineup is probably looking at a play-in spot at best. And when you look deeper down the depth chart, guys like Andre Jackson Jr., AJ Green, Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston, Taurean Prince, it's just not a supporting cast that can make a deep playoff run. So, what does that mean for Giannis? He's 29, still in his prime, and already a champion. But if he stays in Milwaukee with this version of the team, he might be wasting his golden years chasing something that's no longer attainable. It's harsh, but it's true. To make matters worse, the Bucks are still carrying a massive $20 million dead cap hit from the Damian Lillard stretch provision. That's $20 million every year for the next 5 years that cannot be used to help Giannis win. So now the question is back on Giannis, and this is what SportsCenter hammered home. Who does Giannis want to be? Does he want to be a one-time champion who stays loyal and becomes a Milwaukee icon alongside Kareem and Oscar Robertson? Or does he want to chase greatness? Does he want to be in the conversation with LeBron, Kobe, Duncan, the multiple ring legends? Because if he does, the clock is ticking, and Milwaukee no longer looks like the place that can help him get there. Now, bringing this back to the Knicks, the opportunity is real. Talent wins championships in the NBA, and if you compare Jalen Brunson with Giannis Antetokounmpo, you've immediately got the most dangerous 1-2 punch in the league. Brunson is playing at an MVP level. Giannis is already one of the most dominant players in NBA history. Put them together, you can beat anyone in a 7-game series. If you're the Knicks, and this possibility is even 5% real, you do it every day of the week. So if you're watching this right now, and you want to see Giannis in the orange and blue before he retires, now is the time to speak it into existence. Because as SportsCenter reminded us, everything in this league moves fast. All it takes is one decision, one conversation, one push from a star, and the whole league can shift overnight. We've got even more to break down on this, including what the next few weeks could look like, and why New York might be better positioned than most realize. Stick around. This could get wild.